today's conversation is one that is very dear to me personally, and I'll tell you why as we go along. But if you've just joined in, we are discussing how do you broach the topics around sexual dysfunctions, dissatisfaction, or desire with especially a difficult partner. And you know what? Sometimes we are not well versed with everything. So what we try and do as the adults in this room is to go out of our way and look for somebody with an excellent mind, and not just that, an expertise in an area that we want to discuss for you as well. Because you know what? When we know better, we all do better. Now, in today's conversation, we are joined by Cathy Holden, who is a sex therapist. Cathy just walked in. Karibu sana. I heard you got lost and you're in Machakos. You had to reverse all the way via the airport.
Sorry for that. You missed a turn.
Yes, I did. And I saw Nairobi.
All right.
In the evening.
Yes.
Oh, my
by
goodness
night.
me. Fantastic. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for sparing us your time. It really means a lot that you could come and hang out with us. Now, Cathy, let's just dive right into it. I'm sure the person listening, even just before we start, a quick introduction. My name is Eric. Eric Omondi is the second one. I'm sure you'll have your tongue around Omondi later. On your left is Barbara, the Duchess of Ikolomani. She has a big history around that. She's a Duchess, as you can see. On your right is Emmanuel. And together with the fourth person who's not present, but present physically, but present in spirit, the listener. All right? We call him and her msikilizaji. And we have chairs for them. You can see that chair over there.
Yep.
That is for the msikilizaji. So, yes, so welcome. Feel super duper at home. And you who's listening, remember you can ask Cathy whichever question you have. She's a sex therapist. I mean, how often do you find a sex therapist to ask questions? Right? Right?
Yes.
Right? Cathy, let's dive right into it. Many men, a lot of my friends included, want to last longer, but only have a good 30 seconds in them. 30 seconds. All right. So how can they improve their time? If at all it's possible to improve your time, because even sometimes people call in here and say, I have a good 35 seconds. And sometimes I have to beg off my girlfriend or wife's nudges because they want another 16 minutes and I don't have it in me.
Remember, he said it was a personal question.
Yes.
Yes.
From his soul.
And it's I think it's something that a lot of guys want to experience.
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to go that little bit longer.
Yeah.
The reality is sometimes that's not possible, but there are things that you can do to go a little bit longer. So, for example, there are Kegel exercises for men that you can start doing.
Yeah,
As
Emmanuel
a guy.
told me about that.
Yes, so you can actually start doing them. And what it actually does is it allows you to control the muscles
All right.
in your penis so that you're able to control that contraction that happens. And you can also have multiple orgasms.
Yeah. As a man.
As a man,
Yes.
without ejaculating.
Oh, yeah.
You see?
You can have multiple orgasms without ejaculating.
Emmanuel, are you happy now?
Should I remove my coat?
You
Please
know,
do.
Cathy, I was once at a shindig. Barbara, I think I've told you this story.
Yes.
And this guy, he was such a queen, right? Very, very, very colorful man. Strutted in and said, you know, you guys, you heterosexuals have the most boring sex because you guys ejaculate. Us guys have orgasms. And everybody was so confused. They're like, what is this guy high on? So it's amazing. A sex therapist says that, Emmanuel.
He's looking at his face.
I'm waiting for the how.
So maybe just as a disclaimer, Kegel exercises and also any kind of muscle construction exercises are best. You can also see a pelvic floor physical therapist.
Yeah.
Who can identify specific muscles that maybe would allow you to do that. So you can go on the internet and find these Kegel exercises, but it's always good to get a specialist. I work with a pelvic floor specialist as well in my line of work.
Yeah.
So that's something that's good to do. But one of the things that we need to do is maybe change our mind on how we see sex.
Yes.
And really about going longer, it's programming the mind.
Yes.
It's all in the mind.
And it's all about relaxed excitement, which doesn't necessarily mean that you will be going into penetrative sex, because sex is outercourse, intercourse.
Yes.
So it's like, what are you doing in between? What are you doing all around? Is the main thing that you're thinking about just, penetration and ejaculation? Because the idea is that you want to keep the sexual energy within your body. But when you ejaculate, it just goes
outside.
Yes.
But if you're having an orgasm, what happens is that this energy just flows in and out of your partner's body into your body. So it's like a constant cycle.
I think the question a man would be battling with, I can almost feel it, Barbara, is when a man has an orgasm, is there any extractions like they would when they're ejaculating?
Not necessarily. You can look at it. Okay, so for a lady, if you look at an orgasm like a sneeze, and so think about a sneeze, and for a guy, think of a yawn.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
A sneeze for us, it comes from within, from my stomach.
Right.
And the yawn for you, look, you'll be releasing it out.
Right.
You get it?
That's really deep.
That's why she was saying in and out.
So even that has to be something we should train our minds to expect.
Yes.
Because the only thing that, at least I've been expecting, is just the ejaculation.
Yeah.
So how do we train our minds now to this new set of thinking where I know that this is actually an orgasm while I'm doing it, because maybe I don't know it is.
And this is the thing, because a lot of people don't realize that they're actually having it. And this is where something called primal intimacy really plays.
Yeah.
So with your partner, you'll be kind of looking at things like kissing, hugging, eye gazing, touching. So that basically that foreplay that happens before. So that's something that then connects you together. And then that also produces those kind of feelings, that relaxed excitement building up to the final event, if you want to call it that.
I like that you said that we need to look at sex differently. So as a couple, and you talk about a sex therapist and pelvic floor
Specialist.
Yes. Is it something that we can do it as a couple, or one person has to go?
Well, in my experience, couples go together, but really the person who
has the challenge
is the one that goes in to see. But you do find partners coming in and supporting one another.
Maybe also I'm curious about, and maybe when we come back, Eric, like if I have the problem of I ejaculate really, really fast, like how long should I give myself when I'm doing those exercises? Is it like the gym, you give yourself a year before now I see the effect of this exercises? Because sometimes you hear such a story, you go to your house, you get a towel, start trying those things, then you think the next session you're going to be good, but most of the time it's a disappointment.
Indeed. We've been joined by Cathy Holden, who's a sex therapist, and she's here with us all the way until 10 o'clock. Can you imagine? Just for you. And we are not selfish, so we are giving you an opportunity to share and ask any question across the broadcast, from now all the way. Cathy, from 9 o'clock-ish, we normally open the phone line so somebody can call in and ask you a question directly, and she's so eager and looking forward to it. And in the meantime, you could ask your question via 40127, which is our SMS short code, or Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our handle on all three are at Spice FM KE. Cathy is here, Eric is here, Emmanuel is here, and so is Barbara. And we look forward to an enthralling conversation. I'm very excited, and it started on a high note because Emmanuel is typing ferociously. He's been typing all things said, word for word. In fact, he's typing and counter-writing. just in case his laptop dies, he has notes.
I have to have all this info
that he can documented severally.
Yes, you're tuned into 94.4 Spice FM.
Spice.
During the conversation, a very good evening to you. We are the adults in the room. If it's your first time, please feel most welcome. It's so delightful that you could choose us. You'd be anywhere else in the world, in London, New York, or somewhere in the heart of where? Let's see, Bora Bora. But here you are in Ronga, you've tuned into 94.4 and we appreciate you for that. Or even in the heart of CBD and you're driving and you're like, hey, my girlfriend is here, let's listen to Spice. Thank you for choosing us. Today's conversation is one that is very dear to me because I love to learn. And I hope you too, because on the Adults in the Room, we make an effort to become better. Our mantra normally is just better is good. Better is good. Even a tiny, whiny little bit of better is always good. And in the spirit of becoming better, we've been joined by a sex therapist in one and only Cathy Holden. And Cathy is discussing with us numerous conversations around sex and sexuality, including sexual dysfunctions, dissatisfactions, or even desire. If your libido are mismatched, say you are really hyper in your libido and then he's really low, what do you do with that? That's what Catherine is here for. Or even trauma. Something happened to you in your yesteryears and you're so shy, you don't want to bring it up, but you're dying and yearning to bring it up. Catherine is here for that as well. And guess what? You have a chance to talk to her on the air. If you called us from around 9 o'clock, I'll tell you the number if you're new to the family. But in the meantime, you could just text your questions on 40127 via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at SpiceFMKE is our social media handle. I think either Barbara or Emmanuel had something that they wanted to say to Cathy. We can proceed.
Before we went on the link, Cathy was telling us about how you can last longer, you can get to the therapy, or you can do Kegel's exercise. Now, I don't know if this is a myth, but I would ask, does masturbation help for a man to last longer? Because we've had men even call in and sometimes even in our own social groups asking that if I was to masturbate and then wait for maybe a few minutes or half an hour, I would do better or last longer in bed. What are your thoughts on that?
That's actually true. And I think one of the reasons why masturbation or self-pleasure is such a difficult thing for a lot of us to accept is because we were never taught that it was okay.
Yes.
And you see these messages that we received in our formative years, sometimes they actually repress our sexuality.
Yeah.
They repress how we feel.
Yes.
They can even lead us to continue with our, and I'll put this in quotes, tried and tested sexual practices,
Yeah.
Yes.
which can then become a frustration much later.
Yeah.
So definitely that's something that helps. And in fact, some of the treatments in terms of as a sex therapist, masturbation is something that I would recommend to a client if they were, if they wanted to go a little bit longer, because what it does do is it also allows the person to really understand their body.
Yeah.
Because if you're thinking about this as, I don't know, a piece of equipment, you have a manual, right?
Yes.
So you read the manual, you know how to use the machine.
Yes.
But somebody else coming in, you are the best person to understand how your body works, what you like, what you don't like, what your limits are, how far you can go, how far you can push yourself, what is going to make you uncomfortable, what is going to make you super comfortable.
Yeah.
These are all things that we understand through self-exploration. And one of the problems that what we have, or maybe what we do a lot, is that we put the onus on our partner to please us. We say great sex is our partner's responsibility, when great sex is our responsibility. Your orgasm is your responsibility. You can't say, I expect my partner to give me great sex, or I expect my partner to give me an orgasm, or you know what, my partner was really crap today.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of the things that we need to start getting used to, communicating and talking about sex, because it's like anything else.
Yeah. What do you say to a man who would say then, oh my goodness, the pressure is off of my back, I don't have to perform? If orgasm is our responsibility, I could just, come and I'm generously endowed, I'd lie there and then she can do her do.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, are you looking for sex, pseudo-intimate?
Yes.
Or are you looking for great, fulfilling sexual experiences?
Yeah.
That takes two. But it also takes you to understand that there are things that you need to do together.
Yeah.
And by talking about it with one another. And this is where it begins, really. It's talking about it. Because we don't talk about it enough. We talk about everything else when we meet somebody. We don't talk about sex.
Yeah.
And it's a huge risk. Because then you find later on in the relationship, one person is dissatisfied, somebody else wants to get a little bit kinky. This other person is like, oh my gosh, who is this person? And I don't know who I'm with. And this is the thing, we're not talking about it yet. We talk about everything else. We talk about finances. We talk about where we're going to live, where our kids are going to go to school. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about what fulfills us. We don't even disclose our sexual histories, which actually is really important.
Is there a risk that, say, if I'm masturbating, because you've said I'm the one who knows my own body, right? So is there a risk that it'll reach a point where I know my body so well, I don't need my partner anymore, because I can just, dash to the room and just, get it off on my own. So the level of my self-pleasure has reached such a high level that I'm self-sufficient.
Well, two things here. If you are continuously turning your sweetie down or your partner down, then, for example, to self-pleasure yourself all the time, then I would look at this as moving into an addiction. Because it's out of control, it's done even though there's negative impact to others, negative impact to yourself. So that I would be addressing as an addiction. But in terms of getting, you know your body so well, share it with your partner. Share it with your partner. Tell your partner, this is the way that I like to be pleased. And then in turn, ask your partner to also tell you what they want. Because you see, a lot of us assume. And a lot of us sometimes will play detective.
Yes.
Okay? We'll be PIs. Did you orgasm or did you come or, but we're not comfortable saying those two questions.
Are you shaking?
Yeah, we'll kind of just say, did something happen for you? And you know what? Talking about sex is difficult. But I think the more that you talk about it, just like everything else, it becomes easier.
Yeah. I've shared once here with my colleagues, and I keep, I had an aha moment, or you call it an epiphany. I was in a relationship with this woman, and just casually I said, prior to going to bed, I said to her, are you happy, or is there something perhaps you'd want us to do different? All right. Cathy, are you with me?
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. So just to repeat my sentence, what happened was, one time I'm hanging out with this woman. I was getting to know her. And then I said to her, so are you happy, or is there things you'd want me to do? All right. And then she put a glass of wine down and said, Eric, are you serious right now? With such, she became so stunned and serious. I said, yeah, I'm totally serious. And then she said, nobody has ever asked me that. I said, really? I said, all right. So where are we missing? Then she said, if you take time at place X, and if you'd slightly try and prolong these, and then, the way you would ask questions, that one time you did and stopped, if you go back to question asking, that would be amazing. But I hear somebody who's saying, I hear what Cathy is saying, but I'm very, very shy. I'm painfully shy, and these words can come out of my mouth. What does somebody like that do?
Well, I would suggest that you start talking to yourself in that way. Because you see, what we talk about, our mind kind of takes it in.
Yeah.
Okay? It's like telling yourself that, you look gorgeous, you look gorgeous, you look gorgeous. You're going to leave the house and feel really gorgeous, aren't you?
Like self-reaffirmation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're affirming that, this is the kind of thing that I want to experience, for example, I don't know other things that I can't say.
No.
Just go ahead.
I can't. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you're kind of thinking, okay, I want you, for example, to go down on me a little bit longer, maybe put a couple of fingers in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Talking to yourself about it will also allow you to internalize it and get comfortable talking it out.
But there is a caveat. You who's being told, I think you need to don't be icy or shocked. If I were dating Barbara, then she said, I would like a few more fingers. Then I'm like, fingers? How many? How many fingers? And where are they going?
Yes.
They've 3 fingers are not enough. My goodness me. What did you talk about the demeanor of the person being told, though?
Well, I think this is also has to do with a lot of the messaging that we received. Why is that person having difficulty understanding that or taking that? Because you see, the thing is, a lot of us completely forget that when we're in these very intimate relationships, that people get triggered by different things.
Yeah.
For example, I don't know, a roll of toilet paper is nothing to me, but it could be something to Barbara.
Yes.
And I could say, oh, toilet paper. Ugh. And then Barbara would hear it and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. And this is the thing, we don't think about that.
Yeah.
And this is why, for example, sharing about your sexual histories. It's really important. It's part of disclosure when you're becoming intimate with somebody.
Could you expect someone to, have that reaction, at least initially? Like, you break me in. Like, for example, Barbara decides, if she's my wife, she decides to, be real with me. So you have a mental allowance that the first time I share with this person that I need more fingers, they're going to get shocked. But now next time I'm going to repeat and repeat and repeat until it'll reach their subconscious.
Why do you want to get shocked?
No, you would get shocked. Like,
Why?
you're like, hey, my wife is the one telling me these things. So
That's the Bukusu warrior in him.
yeah, so if at all it shocks you, as the person receiving the info from this person,
You want allowance
the person
for
being
shock.
told, the person, if Barbara is the one telling me, she can expect that I'll get shocked initially. Why do you think that's weird?
That's interesting, anyway.
Cathy, there's something that you've said that every time you say it, I'll be like, oh my God, you talk about sexual history.
Yeah.
Now, we already have a problem in our society on how we talk about sex. Some of us are very shy about it. So if I was upfront to maybe my spouse, Eric, about my sexual history, as a woman, even men are not judged so much, but as a woman, it becomes a challenge. So how far should I go with this history? Am I saying is this called the count? Am I talking about body count? Or am I talking about my experience in terms of what I have done or the things that I've sexually explored? How can we define that history?
It's a good one, and it's something that I regularly ask my clients to kind of review for themselves. And one of the things that I also ask them to do is review it with their partners. It's difficult.
Yes, it is.
But you see, what we're looking at is it's not so much the people, it's more or less the emotions and the experiences.
Okay.
So you see, the thing is, if you're in a relationship where you've experienced something really good in your past, and now you're in this relationship, okay, let's talk about kink.
Yes,
Okay?
yes.
Maybe you were kinky with your ex-partner and your new partner is,
Super conservative.
yeah. But you see, the thing is, what we do inherently is we assume that our partner is not going to be into it because they are conservative,
Yes.
right? So,
And I've not spoken to him, so I'm just judging the person.
exactly, assumption. That assumption is based on fear. Fear that if you speak to this person about it, then they're going to think you're
I'm
loony.
kinky, I'm not nice, I'm not decent.
They might reject you.
Yes.
And this is one of the problems with this being a barrier to intimacy. Because we assume, based on some of our negative cognitions that we have about ourselves, that if we are open and vulnerable, that people are not going to accept us. And this is something that we all do. But how about if we started looking at it as opening up to the person and relinquishing that control that we have over other people? Because if you look at it, our locus of control is ourselves.
Yes.
We can't control what our partners feel.
True.
We can only ask them. But when we assume, we even take that choice away from them by trying to control our own fear and anxiety over sharing this information. Now take that away, okay? Let's even think about the serenity prayer, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, take it away. You can't control your partner, but you can control how you feel. You can control what you express.
Yes.
So if you share to the point where you're also allowing yourself to be vulnerable, behavior change in terms of what you're sharing, your partner will also be able to see that you are sharing, which means then you are building safety and security in your relationship.
I'm opening up.
Yeah. So your partner is going to be like, oh, wow, okay, so if she's sharing that with me, that must have taken courage. So let me do that as well. Now, I'm not saying that this is the go-to for everyone, it's like an easy exchange. It's difficult. And this is one of the reasons why, people come to see me, is because they want to try and have that conversation. They want to find a way back to intimacy. They want to be able to share. And that's something that I help people with. So definitely daunting, but mostly encouraged, especially if you trust this person.
About there's something Eric alluded to, and I really want you to touch on that. Like a couple who have different timings, all right?
Okay.
So like personally, I'm a morning person, and then I'm a morning person, and then my missus is more of an evening person, like Nate. So like blending those two timings is pretty hard, like because I'm always telling her, I'm bringing my own stories over here to the radio show. I'm always telling her, why are you so fixed on this nighttime thing? You don't want to compromise and try it in the morning, and she's like, no, me, I just want it in the evening. So like what counsel do you give such couples who have different timings, and how do you sort that out? Like, do you divide the time in the middle and meet at that time? How do you deal with that?
Well, one strategy that can work for that is sometimes you would not want to be sexually intimate at night because you're tired, right?
Yes.
Maybe you're a morning person and you're not into the whole night thing. So what you can do is go to sleep. Okay, and this is something that's so the stuff that I'm talking about, these things are tried and tested and they've been done. So
Yes.
these are kind of like therapies that are being done. So
Yes.
I'm not cooking them up in my head. But so you'd go to sleep, set your timer on for 90 minutes. Okay, so your alarm clock, wake up together, shower, have that whole sensual kind of side of it, and then get intimate. So it's something that you can do. And what it does is it also, it switches things up. Well, sometimes you get to a point where you're doing the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
Have it in another room. Take it outside of the house. Because, all of us, we're very complicated human beings as individuals. Now put two people together.
Yeah.
That's like one complicated, and it can be very, very messy.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's more or less just kind of saying, okay, where can we compromise on this? Yeah. So, okay, we can do the 90-minute trick. Okay, but maybe it might not work on a weekday because the next day we have to go to work.
Yeah.
But what else can we do? What other times can we try and do it? Because sometimes you'll find that the body and the mind are not working at the same time. So while you might look at it as a sexual dysfunction in terms of libido differences, I would also kind of challenge it to look at, okay, do you have a spontaneous drive or a responsive drive? Do you want me to explain that?
Please do.
Sure.
Okay, so a responsive drive, let me start with the spontaneous drive because it's easier to explain. So the spontaneous drive is kind of like an automatic, think of a light switch.
Yes.
Okay, boom. I am ready for sex. My body's ready. My mind is ready. I am switched on. I'm ready to go.
When I see you, I get switched on.
Yes, I'm good. Now, responsive takes a little time. Body might be alert. This feels good. But the mind's not there yet.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of time for you to be able to get into that zone of eroticism, for you to then be able to engage with your partner. And sometimes what you'll find is that when you're engaging with your partner, that's when you start feeling good about it.
Yes.
So those are the two kind of different kind of, sex drives that we have. Now, it doesn't mean that, I know, maybe you're thinking spontaneous drive are men and then responsive drive are women. Actually, depending on what's going on in our lives, we can interchange.
It could be either or.
Yeah.
or.
Or we can be one thing constantly and then change that again. But this is, it's an important kind of thing. And you see, a lot of people with responsive drives get labeled as having low libidos. And it's very damaging. Because, think about it. You're trying your level best, but, you're just built differently.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who are built this way.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that you're built this way always. Maybe there's something going on in your life that this is what is taking over. So, in that case, you get labeled in that way. And this is the message that you carry on. And then you start avoiding sex. Because, you're like, your partner is always like making fun of you. And he's taking the piss.
Yes.
Yeah. So, let me just avoid it altogether. So I think, just, and also understanding if you have a responsive drive or if you're in a situation where you're experiencing that, what helps you get there? Again, this is your manual.
Yeah.
Do you need to, watch something, whether it's a little porn, for example? Do you need to get in the zone? Because you see, the thing is, the brain is our largest sex organ.
Yes.
That's where it all starts. And that's why one of the reasons why, when we're thinking about something else, in fact, there's this book that I was reading where it actually says, the penis reveals what the heart hides.
That's a good one.
That's a very good quote.
Yeah. And it's actually true, because if you are mulling over and you're not connecting with your partner at that time, or you're thinking about, what, am I gonna be able to get it up, or am I gonna be able to ejaculate? Oh my God, what is she thinking? Is she actually here with me? What is she? And then, you're having maybe the other partner thinking about, oh, okay, have I done the laundry? Have I done this? What are we going to have for dinner? Are the kids taken care of? These two people are not connecting.
Yeah.
And you see, and this is the thing, when you're not connecting, you're in a state of stress and anxiety. Your body then starts messing with you in a way. You're breathing. You don't breathe. You stop breathing. And if you stop breathing, you're going to end up cutting off the circulation in your pelvic region. And that's going to either lead to, your penis, becoming flaccid, or, for example, for women, you become a little bit dry, or you're just not ready. And this is the thing. And these are some of the things that happen with people. And these are, it's something that we may go through at one point in our lives.
Yeah. Very interesting. If you're joining the conversation, we've been joined by Cathy Holden, who's a sex therapist, for you and us to learn together. And you're more than invited to shoot whichever questions you might have pertaining sex and sexuality, including trauma, which is something, Cathy, when we come back, I think we'll want to talk about a little, because there's a lot of trauma. And as you've said rightfully, there's a lot of vernacular that just tries to stem that deep in the ground. Nobody ever wants to talk about it. So we'll talk about more of that. Remember, you can share your mind with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. 40127 is our SMS short code. If you're new to the family, I love to welcome you, because you never know. Maybe this is the day you're like, my girlfriend has been pestering me about these adults people. Let me hear them out. Yes, we are the adults in the room. And guess what? We are here every day, Monday all the way to Friday, 7 to 10 p.m. weeknights. And what we try and do is to make sense of difficult conversations around marriage, relationship, money, and guess what? Sex. Like today's convo is about sex. Sex is exciting. Somebody once said that if you went into an empty street and just shouted sex, people would start peeping. They'll be like, what, where is it? Oh my goodness me. And we are not alone. Well, the normal culprits are here. Barbara is here, and so is Emmanuel and myself. But we have the pleasure of hosting Cathy Holden, who is a sex therapist. And she's going to school for this sort of stuff. So all we are doing today is sucking in all the knowledge, asking the questions, and really taking notes and understanding better. All right. And you can join us in question asking. We are not one to hog conversations. So you can shoot your questions on 40127, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And Cathy, as long as time permits, is going to try her level best to, answer you. Barbara, you want to say something?
I wanted to ask a question that is coming from one of our listeners. And the question is actually similar. I've seen it 3 different times. It's recurring. So this is both. One, I think, is a female. One is a male. They are asking, is it normal for them to go for too long without climaxing? And is it something, because it's causing him an insecurity issue? And also a lady is asking a similar question. So what are your thoughts about that? None of them, when they start engaging, they do not climax.
Okay. So 2 things come to mind. And I by the way, I'm not diagnosing anybody here.
Yes.
There's a lot that goes into that.
Yes.
But it sounds like delayed ejaculation for the guy. And it also sounds like female orgasmia.
Okay.
And it's these are things that happen. And these kind of 2 things that happen to these people's bodies, there's a lot of anxiety there. That's what I'm, from the question. I'm hearing that. I'm hearing anxiety, and I'm hearing hypervigilance.
What is hypervigilance?
So it looks like when you're very, very aware of what's happening to you. So instead of engaging in sex or being intimate with your partner, you are concentrating on, you not being able to ejaculate, for example, or you not being able to orgasm. So there's hypervigilance there. There's also something else in terms of where is your level of how much foreplay do you engage in as a woman, for example, because 70% of women do not have orgasms based on penetration.
True.
Penetrative sex. Okay. And then there's another 12% who never orgasm at all.
Yes.
Okay. And I mean,
They
these
will
are
never
statistics.
ever for life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't.
It's not for everyone.
But it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. It also doesn't mean that they're not enjoying sex. So that's one of the things that I would try and find out. The other thing that I'll try and find out is there any sexual trauma?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because, that has occurred.
Okay.
And how do you deal with that? Like, if you have a partner, you're doing well, then she goes through trauma. Like, what next?
Well, there's two things that can happen. So if your partner goes through some sexual trauma when you're together, there are things that you can start doing to heal together. There's an exercise that I do a lot with my clients who've gone through sexual trauma. It's called Relearning Touch, where the person who's gone through the trauma will then take over leading in some of the very the kind of games. So I'm talking about like really basic games, like, like when we're in school with the hand thing,
Yes.
and then, maybe touching the person's hair,
Yeah.
and then being the person stopping and starting.
Yeah.
But it's a journey all the same. The other thing is a lot of us, and I see this a lot, it's heartbreaking, but some of us who've had sexual trauma when we were very young didn't even know that it was happening.
Yes.
And it's happening with aunties, it's happening with house helps, it's happening with uncles, brothers. So, that there are things that are happening. And then, of course, there are elders in the, wherever you live, respect your elders, so that kind of thing. So, and one of the things why it makes it so hard to get over, to even talk about, is because sometimes your body will have a physiological reaction. It'll go through a physiological reaction.
Yeah.
So, for example, for a guy, you'll ejaculate. And for example, for a young girl, she might actually be wet, for example. So it's like when that happens, you're kind of thinking, well, I asked for it.
Yeah,
I was wearing this, I asked for it. And that perception it's heartbreaking in a way, because some people don't even know that this happened to them, and then later on in life something triggers you, and then you find yourself regressing. You find your partner not willing to have sex anymore. You find your partner avoiding. You find your partner, making excuses that that they don't want to do X, they don't want to do Y, and this is based on trauma. So I think it's really important that we're very compassionate and kind of think about why this is happening. Because if this is happening with somebody that you're with and you're intimate with, you trust them, are they really the kind of person who would withhold sex just for the sake of withholding it? Couldn't there be something there? And sometimes we look at the other person as an enemy in the room.
It shouldn't be the case.
And it does. It happens. You get two people who have no idea how to relate to each other, and they just look at each other like, they're at war.
Yeah.
And it's painful to see, because it's these kind of things where, you need for each of you, whatever has gone through in your life, you need to be the person who moderates or who regulates stress for your partner.
Yes.
There needs to be mutual stress regulation. Your partner needs to feel at home. Your partner needs to feel like, you know what, I can really be myself here.
Yes.
Because then healing can actually begin. And you can do that in therapy.
It's a very interesting, and speaking of trauma, Cathy, maybe you will touch on this a little bit when we come back from the break. A friend of mine once went on a date, but this woman he was really taken by, and they asked for their coffee, and they were, trying to get to know each other, and in no time she broke into a big story about something heinous that happened to her, a sexual assault. And my friend, of course, doesn't have any professional training about how to handle it. So he was dumbfounded. He was just there quiet. So maybe when we come back, I want to hear your mind about two things. What methodology should somebody who's been sexually abused use, at least fairly new into a relationship, in sharing their problem? And just as a layman, if somebody is sharing, what need they do in terms of their reaction? I was asking my friend, because I'm also not trained, so I said to my friend, maybe you should have asked this lady if she wanted a solution or just you to listen. I don't know. That is what I could come up with. And he was really traumatized. He was just like, so I just sat there and I was digging in my cake and I was like, is it even sensitive that I should continue eating after she's told me something so scary, something around being raped by a bunch of guys? And my friend was really traumatized. So I'm very keen to know about methodology and even the person being given the information, how he should be in terms of even his body language or what he should say and so on and so forth. If you're joining the conversation, we are the adults in the room. And today we're joined by Cathy Holden, who's a sex therapist. She's here with us and we're asking questions together with you. You can ask, as I'm seeing you do, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We also have an SMS short code 40127. Barbara, there's so much. I don't know if you're saying there's so much. Maybe we'll have to allow a lot of time to, you who's asked many, many questions so that Cathy should go through as many as she possibly can and keep them coming. We'll try our best to squeeze in as many as we can. Thank you so much for hanging out with us from 7 o'clock up until now. We thank you. It's exactly 9 o'clock. Good evening.
Spice.
4.4 is the tuna in Nairobi. I'm talking about Banana all the way to Kangundo, all the way to Ruai, which keeps getting farther and farther. If you're in CBD, the Central Business District, you can catch us live on 94.4 as well. Even Ruai, even Koroi. Imagine today I was with a friend of mine whose mother lives in Koroi, and I was asking him how that journey is, and he was laughing because it's true, it's a journey. But we love you wherever you're tuned in from. Remember, we're the first radio to come alive in a visual format. You can catch this show live if you simply went to www.spicefm.co.ke. You could watch Cathy even as she's explaining, because maybe you wouldn't know her expressions might have you see where she's emphasizing the needs on where you need to tweak, all right, so that we are better together. If you've just joined in, perhaps we are in the studio with Cathy Holden, who's a sex therapist, and we are asking questions pertaining sex, even the traumatic events in our lives. And we are trying, because it's not every day you meet a sex therapist who is willing to share her, nuggets with you. And before the break, I was asking, as so should you on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, about an ordeal my friend had. He went on a date. A woman went all out about a traumatic event. Cathy, the problem women have, and I'm guilty of this, we always go to the fix-it mode. Every time a woman in our lives presents a problem, somebody grabbed me in the office, you're like, where? I want to beat him up, Or somebody slapped me on the street. You're like, which street exactly? Can you remember his face? So I think, would you say, does it help that the person sharing, this person who went through a traumatic event, should state their expectations in their sharing? For instance, should they say, I'm only sharing for support and not for you to try and solve this? Or how should they go about it? What methodology should they share?
And it's a good question. And it's a little difficult to answer because I don't think there's a prescribed way of these kind of interactions. I mean, unless it's rehearsed, which it never is at dates. But I think one of the first things that we can do is if somebody shares something so traumatic with us, it's also showing that there's a level of trust.
Yeah.
So that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Also, if you're the person who's gone through the sexual trauma, share it when you're ready. In my practice, I avoid using the word should with clients.
All right.
I hear a lot of should from my clients, and the reason why I don't use that word, and I know most of my colleagues as well do the same, is because should is very black and white. It actually shows, and if you should do this because negative consequence.
It's prescriptive almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And should is attached to guilt and shame.
Mm-hmm.
I did, I should have done this, and that's why I'm going at it.
I'm going
So,
through this.
yeah, so I ask my clients to change their language,
All right.
because what you speak, your mind listens.
Yes.
So let's start very simply, even today. Try and change everything that you're shoulding.
All right.
Okay, so change it to could.
Uh-huh.
If it's in the past tense, say I wish.
Yeah.
And that will also already alleviate some of the pressure that you're putting on yourselves, because this is a lot.
Yeah.
And it's heavy. It's exhausting for your mental health to be shoulding all the time.
Yeah.
Because if you think about where did should come from, when you're growing up with your parents, yeah, they're telling you to do things, and then you're kind of thinking that way. So I would say, okay, so that's the first thing. Only share if you're comfortable. Another thing, maybe if you're the person listening, really listen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I would say reflective listening. When the person is talking, mirror back. Reflective listening is about mirroring back what that person is saying, trying to really understand, but not just sympathize, but empathize, because there's a difference. Sympathy
Yes,
is,
there is.
oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
But empathy is like, wow, I can only imagine what that went through. Are you comfortable telling me more?
Yeah.
So that's that's reflective listening. And then you can also do active listening, where you're not looking, so you're basically listening to somebody and you're not waiting for you're not anticipating your response. So you're listening to understand.
Attentively.
Yes, absolutely. And you're taking in all the cues. You're looking at the body language. If somebody is really shifty, walking away, maybe they're, like moving their shoulders a lot, blinking, looking away. Maybe this is something that, brings them a lot of pain. So be that light for that person, because they came to you. And by all means, please refer them to a therapist, because you see, these are the things that if we don't address now, our relationships will address them
Absolutely.
later.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They'll
Any
manifest.
kind of trauma, they manifest, and it's really painful, because then you get into a situation where you can't, and it has to start somewhere. It's not comfortable, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So even now, as you're listening, if you're kind of thinking, something happened to me when I was 8, or something happened to me when I was 15, take hold of it in a way, acknowledge it, because you see, the thing is, you can't consent to something like that.
Yeah.
As long as you are under 18, you cannot consent as a child. But even as, however old we are now, if it's not enthusiastic consent, meaning yes, and if you can see me now, I'm doing that,
Yeah.
then it's a no. Because sex is a responsibility. You're responsible for yourself, but you're also responsible for that other person. So you owe it to yourself, you owe it to that person to make sure that you have enthusiastic consent. And if you're not sure, then that's not consent. And that's something that, a lot of us didn't get told of, because when you kind of ask, like, for example, in my practice, when I'm asking people, okay, what was your first sexual experience like? Oh, yeah, it was just there.
Yeah.
I can't really remember it. It wasn't anything, it just happened.
Yeah.
And like, did you want it to happen? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? Okay, how old were you? And then, you hear stories of somebody who's under 18. You hear people who are in their 20s, and, they're not sure. And if you're not sure, then that means you really didn't want it. So, for all of us who are listening out there, please, let's respect each other's wishes.
Yes.
Okay? Don't force yourself on. You can actually feel sexy and do nothing about it, yeah?
Yes. True.
You can,
Yeah, absolutely.
because this is where the whole relaxed excitement comes in.
Yeah.
Because you're building up to be with somebody else, to be with your partner, but you're not necessarily, or maybe you look at somebody and you think, wow, gosh, that person is really hot, but then you do nothing about it. That's okay. that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, there's no prescriptive way of actually doing that. When I get all these sexual feelings,
Yeah.
they need to be addressed.
Yeah, we are hanging out with Cathy Holden. She's a sex therapist all the way until 10 o'clock. And I think we've taken a chunk of our time already as the adults in the room. I think it would do us some good to allow the adult outside the room to ask some questions. Barbara, I want us to make a deal with you. You want to try read as many comments as you can.
Yes.
And the questions that are similar, you can ask them at once so that we
Yes.
don't go through all of them. And you who's listening, perhaps in your car, and you cannot type on 40127 or go over to Facebook, you could call me right now. Call us all on 0719-012-600. So I think a deal that would work best for us, we can pick one phone call, Barbara, and then read one message. Pick one phone call, read one message. How do you feel about that, Emmanuel?
Sounds good.
It sounds good.
Are
0719.
you ready, or I start with a question?
And you can start with the question. The phone calls are coming in already, so you do your thing.
What are your thoughts, or touch a little bit on the usage of Viagra, Cucamonga for boosting sexual energy?
I will hold that thought, Catherine. You were calling, you've hung up. I was going to pick your phone call, so we combine it together. Cathy, do you need a pen and a paper? Or you're that smart?
I can give you a page.
Yeah, but Emmanuel can type for you,
Okay.
and then just to refresh your memory. So yes, so as we made a promise, we are giving you a chance to ask whichever question you have. And I see so many questions online, and we want to include as many people as can. So 0719-012-600 is the number. You can call in live on the air and ask Cathy your question. But even as you do that, we are going to be reading some of your feedback. Let's go all the way to Malindi, our mom. Zara, good evening. How are you, Zara?
Fine, thank you. Habari ya daktari?
Mzuri, daktari yako sawa. That's
Oh, hello. I'm sorry.
Hello, my question is,
Yes.
could you speak about FGM? Because I've encountered patients who come and tell me they'll give anything to have their clitoris back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zara. Some other phone call. Emmanuel, did you get that?
Yes, I got
All righty. Spice, good evening.
Hello,
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for calling. What's your good name and where you calling from, my brother?
My name is Tony. I'm calling from Limuru.
Shoot your question or concern, my good sir.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
I once had sex with a man, and this gay thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm married now.
Yeah, so what's the
So-
question? No, yeah.
So how do I share it with my spouse?
How do you discuss it with your spouse? Alrighty. Thank you so much for calling. Alrighty. We are picking your phone calls all the way until 10 o'clock. Just for you, the number you're calling is 0719-012-600. Remember, on the adults in the room, there's nothing that is not permissible. All things are welcome. You can ask your concern, questions, even desires, hidden desires. And I'm sure Cathy will try her best she can to address as many questions as time will permit us to have. Spice, good evening. Hello, Spice FM. Also, please, in the interest of time, switch off your radio so we don't hear feedback. We are trying, as you'd appreciate, to speak to as many persons as possible, I guess. Spice, good evening.
Yes, Spice, how are you?
Very well, sir.
Yeah, I'm great, man.
Sorry, you said?
I'm just fat.
Jospat, Karibu, what are your thoughts or question?
Okay, I was joining on the program. I just wanted to tell you that I'm just listening on your program.
Alrighty, thank you.
We have a lady who's asking, Cathy, every time I have sex, I feel pain.
Every time I have sex, I feel pain. Do you want me to pick another call, Barbara?
Yes.
Alrighty.
Then we can give her time to answer.
Spice, good evening. Alrighty, please switch off your radio. We are picking your phone calls. 0719-012-600. Somebody says there, Barbara, that they rub themselves and they are so addicted to rubbing themselves they cannot stop. Have you seen that one?
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah. So maybe we'll address that as well as we go along. I can pick one phone call before we go on a break, and then we'll pick more phone calls. Spice, good evening. Hello, Spice, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you for calling. What are your thoughts or question?
My question is it's about sex.
Sure. Switch
Yes,
off your radio though, because there's feedback. Switch off your radio.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. What's your question?
I'm Steve.
Yes, Steve.
Yes, from Eldoret.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So if sex doesn't prove love, why is it that cheating is so painful?
If sex doesn't prove love, why is cheating so painful? My goodness.
I was about to ask her.
He's trying to make Cathy also a love doctor.
She's a sex therapist, a certified sex therapist, not a love doctor.
My goodness me. Remember, you can shoot your questions on 40127 on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram. Plus, if you prefer to call in instead, we are more than happy to receive your phone call 0719-012-600. And please remember that you can also stay anonymous. Don't feel pressure to announce your name. Cathy is here with us all the way until 10 o'clock. So keep your comments coming and even questions. I don't know, Barbara, if I can pick one more phone call. Probably not. We can address those ones as we come back, and then maybe we'll continue with, picking phone calls and reading comments. I don't want to have so many questions. Can you imagine 36 questions?
Let us answer this one first.
It will sound like an exam.
They're already 84.
Yes, but it's a very good evening to you if you're joining the conversation. Thank you so much for choosing 94.4 Spice FM. We are the adults in the room. If you're new to the program, Karibu Sana. We are here every day, Monday all the way to Friday. We try and make sense of difficult conversations. You know, those conversations that people are hush-hush about? We bring it to the fore. For what reason, you would ask? For the simple reason to learn and become better. And today we have the pleasure of hosting in our midst Cathy Holden, who's a sex therapist. She's going to school to read about this stuff. And guess what? She's doing a dissertation soon to become a PhD. And before too long, she'll have the DR just before her name.
Do you think we should dash to the clinic before? So
you fear the race will be different?
we might have to pay a little more.
Oh my goodness me. Yes. And what Cathy is here to discuss is really matters sex. And we're answering as many questions as we can, at least as time would permit. I was requesting her during the break that we need to make time, if she would permit us, to just come and grace our studios again and have more of this conversation. Because from assessment, just looking online to see, Barbara, what people are writing,
yes,
and Facebook, there's a lot of pain and confusion and, a lot of clarity that is needed. But let's go over the questions we went through. Cathy went through the trouble of writing them down. We can start with whichever form you want, wherever you want to start.
Okay. Cool. So I'm taking it away.
All right.
Yes. Go ahead, darling.
Okay, so one of the questions I remember was thoughts on Viagra and other kind of I think there was
sexual
Cucamonga or
yes,
something, any mood enhancing kind of things.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't speak for or against drugs.
Mm-hmm.
They help some people who have sexual dysfunctions.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the one thing that is important is that you do not take it without a prescription.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these drugs are prescribed by a physician. And by the way, as a sex therapist, I cannot prescribe any of this medication.
Yes.
So and I wouldn't even, for example, tell you, okay, try this herbal extract, because that's not what I'm licensed to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
However, there are things that you can do to boost your own sexual health, for
Yes.
example. Okay, so for example, some of the things that you can do is lead a good lifestyle, cut out the smoking, because that does no favors for you at all. Alcohol, keep that limited. It's a depressant. It may relax you a little bit, but if used over a long time, it's not that great.
Yes.
Exercise as well, because that's something that can also restrict your movement. Although, even though you're larger or a certain size, it doesn't mean that you still can't enjoy great sex.
That's true.
Okay, because remember, sex, there's a body-mind connection. So keep that in mind as you're doing that. So these are some things that you can do. Of course, seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist is something that you can do. Definitely advocate for that. If you're expecting, this is a really good thing for you to do as an expecting mom. because what they do is they do checks, during your expectancy, and this also helps you recover. Because one of the things that in terms of our pelvic floor health, there are 3 main muscles in the pelvis that are responsible for having normal sexual functioning. So if you're concerned, speak to a pelvic floor therapist. You can also reach out to me and I can refer you to a wonderful lady that I work with. Okay, and then of course other things in terms of your mind, communicate. I cannot, talk about that enough, and also get to know your body as well. Don't expect your partner to be responsible for your orgasm or having good sex.
Take responsibility.
Absolutely, for that orgasm.
Manuel kwa mkono yako.
Okay. Okay, then can I get the
No,
next
proceed.
one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so there's another one is, so I've had sex with a man, and how do I share this with my wife? This is a really tricky one, simply because, are you ready? And I just want to say, maybe there are things today that I will say that will trigger you. And then you'll kind of think, oh, I heard Cathy say this on the radio. Let me just go and do it now. Think before you do it. I'm talking in a very general kind of way. And, and this is something that maybe you might have to come into therapy for, because if you're disclosing, a sexual history of being with a same-sex partner, and your current partner doesn't know about that, then it's going to present a few problems with your partner, and especially if they don't know that. So there will be that, the aspect of betrayal. Why didn't you tell me? How could you? And then there'll also be that part where you guys can actually work through it and find a wonderful and beautiful way to remarry each other. Because I was listening to this beautiful podcast, and this lady was talking about it's Esther Perel, and she was talking about like how you can be with your partner, the same partner, and be married to them 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah, listen to it. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. And this is something that we need to kind of be thinking. If something isn't working in our relationship, don't move on to somebody else. Try and fix what is there, because there could be something there. However, also recognize if you're in an unhealthy or toxic relationship, and find a way of moving out of that pain. The world is way too big and beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. So just be careful in terms of what you're sharing. I would recommend that you share this in therapy, in couples therapy. Come in for a few sessions yourself, and then, bring in your partner if this is something that you want to talk about. There's also, the subject of, is this something that you consented to? Because it may have not been. And I want to share a little bit about that, because there's something called a sexual arousal template. Now, I want you to kind of think about this as Word or Excel. Okay, it's a template that you normally use for your finances, for example, and you'll go and use it for the next month. Now, with the sexual arousal template, we can't delete sexual experiences, things that arouse us. Okay, it's not like a Word document, delete and it disappears. We can't delete the stuff. So it's finding a way to kind of work within it and with it, as opposed to against it. There's nothing wrong with you. And you know what? Contrary to what people say, having a same-sex sexual experience doesn't mean that you're gay. And there's actually nothing wrong with being gay.
Yes.
There's absolutely nothing wrong. There is diversity and there is beauty in our sexual experiences, and we need to embrace that. And I know maybe some of you are listening and thinking, oh my God, this woman is loony. No, I am just sex positive, and I believe everybody has a right to their own sexual experiences. So just because you engage in a specific sexual behavior doesn't mean you get called a name.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so every time I have sex, I have pain.
Yes.
This sounds like the pelvic pain that I'm thinking in terms of a sexual dysfunction. Sometimes it's related to past sexual trauma that you haven't addressed. Also, seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist is a good idea to kind of find out which muscles are contracting, and which, for example, is this happening before intercourse? Is it happening as soon as you even think about having sex? Because this is where it gets. You can actually get that somatic pain where you're kind of already preempting and you're already experiencing the pain. So it's kind of finding out where this pain starts. So I would recommend seeing a sex therapist and a pelvic floor specialist. You do not having pain during sex is, it's not something that you need to continue doing.
Yes.
Please don't continue doing it. Don't harm yourself. Love yourself enough to seek help. And it's so good that you're actually here asking that very pertinent question. So, kudos to you. And please don't continue having pain. And actually men do experience pain as well.
I was actually just going to ask that
Yes.
it's not just women, sometimes men also feel
Yes.
pain. So whether you're a man or a woman, you need to stop
Yes.
and go get checked.
Well,
I'm sure.
because I mean, think about it, and a lot of us sometimes, and I can definitely say that I've probably been in this situation personally where I've actually had sex and it's painful, but then I'm thinking, but this person is enjoying it, so why?
Let me not stop.
Let me just not stop. Let me continue doing it. It's not the best thing to do. I'm sharing this with you because it's not something that you need to do to allow somebody to love you. That is not love. Okay, love is not pain.
That's true.
And if they love you, they'll give you a minute. It's not going to hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, any sensible person would pull out and
I think ladies just fear.
And they want to solve the problem too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If they
Take
care
a break
about you.
and,
Yeah.
And even like how much foreplay are you actually engaging in before? Because sometimes you're not engaging in any foreplay. We're not ready to go. We're just like, our bodies are not just ready to go just whenever it happens. Not all of us are light switches. Not all of us will get lubricated enough, as women, for example, to have sex. So, that's the kind of thing that I would like to find out. Like, are you lubricated enough? And if you're not, can you use lubrication? Because water-based lubricants are actually lovely. And, it kind of feels as if it's the real thing. But then also pain could be the fact that you are, experiencing some kind of an irritation to latex or a specific condom or a cream, or, are you douching too much?
Yes.
So, for example, go in and see your gynecologist or your urologist. And for men, there's Peyronie's disease.
Yes.
Where the penis is there's a curvature in the penis.
Yes.
That is extremely painful to deal with. So if that's something that you notice,
You shouldn't rush to try have sex at a corner.
No.
They say it's bend it like Beckham.
It's
But
actually,
yes, but it causes a lot of problems to women.
I'm
And some
sorry.
men don't get it.
I'm sorry, I saw something online really funny. This woman was saying, not to make light, I'd rather not to really downplay somebody's problem, but she said that this guy is stripped and he had a curvy penis. So she said, wondering, do I have to look for a corner? I thought that was hilarious, Barbara. Isn't it funny?
So can you can that be the go-to method? Like, I'll always be substituting, the natural lube for, I buy lube because maybe she's not lubricating fast enough. So is it okay if it's always a go-to?
It's perfectly okay. This is, again, going back to the childhood messaging. Like, if I'm not wet enough, like right now, there's something wrong with me.
Yes.
And you know what? You, as my partner, if you're not wet enough, that means you don't want me. You see, so all these are actually
Which is
assumptions.
wrong.
And it's stereotypes. It's things that we've created. For example, sex is dirty. Sex is not. It's pervasive to human existence.
Absolutely.
And we're all not the same. Not all women are wet on the same levels. That is why that lube can come in handy, depending on the time of the month, depending also on your age or what you're going through. Even sometimes when you're sick on medication, it alters your pH and a lot of things.
We were actually having a conversation a couple of days ago about lubrication, and a lot of the conversation that was going around was how some people associate it, again, as you say, with the messaging, that maybe lube is just used for a particular section or a particular style or a particular sex position or sex preference and so on and so forth. So it's interesting that a sex therapist would and allow that lube use is permissible. So if you are that alternative thinking, you can pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And Barbara, I think you should, well, not should,
Yeah.
but you can be a sex therapist.
I can.
I like what you just said.
Oh.
Maybe you need to come into training.
I will. I would love to. Kathy, I would love to. I would like to know more and share. Yes. Because I feel a lot of women out here, we don't talk so much. And if you're a woman and you voice out certain things, I've had people like, you're not feeling ashamed? What's wrong with you? Uncomfortable. But I've realized I want to be that voice that I'll say it as it is, get upset, but it's the truth. It's not dirty. Sex is something that should be pleasured with consent and to willing parties.
Yeah, absolutely.
Zara asked about FGM.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. So just before I talk about FGM, taking antihistamines as well can dry you up. And if you smoke a lot of pot.
Oh,
can
yes,
also
I've
dry
heard
you
of
up.
that.
The herb.
What
Yeah.
about the cut? Mira is cut?
Yes.
Yes, also.
Chewing.
Yes, does
chewing
that?
can affect sexual functioning because it's a stimulant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does
it is a
pot
stimulant.
dry women up? What is the effect on men?
That's a really good question. I would, I think I'd probably, it's a really interesting question. I think I would have to look at that and get back to you.
I
Can
read.
I do that?
Yes, you can. I read an interesting piece in Jamaica, and they found that a lot of Jamaican men were impotent because of pot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because it is a depressant.
Yes.
So if it's depressing your system, then this is something that would then reduce the level of blood flow to your extremities.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about fingertips
Yes.
and also your penis. So
Yeah.
that is probably
Absolutely.
that is it.
So we can proceed. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, so FGM. So my thoughts on FGM. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's really traumatic. I had to take a pause. Yeah, I'm taking a pause because it's very traumatic for people for women who've had the cut.
And Zara is actually a medical nurse.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can imagine.
Yeah, and you see, and this is the thing, it would really depend where the cut happened and, how deep it penetrated, because there is still, you can have the cut and still feel something. And then there are others who've, had the cut and then they can't feel something.
The cut was too deep.
Yeah. And, can you reconstruct a clitoris at the moment in terms of the information that I have? Not as yet. However, when I think about the transgender population, this is something where, men and women who are in trans can actually get, construction of a part that they want.
Yes.
Okay, so like a penis or a vulva.
Yes.
But am I able to say that right now? I can't even, and that's a really important question, Zara. And you know what, Zara, please reach out to me, because I would love to hear more from you in terms of that, and maybe we can work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How many questions do we have in?
We have one that
I have
we've
one
not.
more here.
Yes, one more.
Okay, so this is to the gentleman who said that if sex doesn't mean love, why does breaking up hurt? You know what? Breakups, they hurt. Okay, they hurt, and one of the reasons why they hurt is because we are invested in that person. And you see, the thing is, sexual intimacy, by the way, is one of the 8 types of intimacy that we have. Okay, and when we have sex with somebody, sometimes if we're not very clear about what we want, and this is where being very open and communicating, like, what is this?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Is this a friend with benefits? And that they're non-monogamous lifestyles.
Yes.
Okay, there are loads and loads and loads. So it's more or less you finding out from your partner where you are on that page and having that honest conversation. Like, what is this? Is this sex? Is this going to become a relationship? Because you see, the thing is, if you and you need to have boundaries. You need to also have those boundaries in place where if somebody's coming to you and they just want to have a bit of fun and that's not what you're looking for, you can say no.
Yes.
And if you want to have sex with no strings attached, that's also okay.
Yeah.
But breakups hurt because we invest time, we invest dreams. So it's more or less when we break up with somebody, we go through grief.
Yeah.
It's a loss. It's
It's
like
a death of a relationship.
and it's painful and we go through cycles. But you know what? There's a way that we can actually heal from it. And I do this a lot in my practice because actually breakups or sometimes you get into betrayal, for example.
Yes.
That's also something that I cover in my practice. And those are very, very painful because people are invested. You know, we feel as if we belong. We feel as if this person really gets us. And then they go and they hurt us and they do this really horrible thing to us. And we can't even fathom that they've actually done that. And there are people who won't care. They just won't care.
Also, Cathy, I think the thing that must be said, which I was thinking of when you were speaking, is how, rejection is part of ending of a relationship. People often feel rejected. And I would dare add, even with the gentleman who asked the question, that sometimes it's not even so much the sex. Because even if you were courting and you would not had sex, if somebody severs the relationship, the rejection beat of it hurts you, even if you'd never had sex with them. It's the same way you'd get hurt from a friendship breakup. If Emmanuel, who I've known for a minute, decides to discontinue our relationship, it would hurt. It would hurt. It would hurt whether it's a platonic relationship, even a romantic relationship. So that tinge of rejection really does somebody in.
Absolutely. And please remember, like, I really believe, like, down to the bottom of my heart, that sometimes rejection is for your protection.
Yes.
So, that's something that we kind of need to be mindful of. If you had sex with this person and then, you told them that they love you, you were open, you were vulnerable, you were looking for you're being the best version of you and, and they don't see that, that's okay.
Yeah.
Take it as a learning, find out what it is so that it doesn't keep on repeating itself. Find out what it is about you that allowed you to be in that position. Because you see, essentially, we all put ourselves in those kind of positions. We make choices. Even when we choose to do nothing, we're making a choice to do nothing.
Yeah.
So find that out about yourself.
There's a question that Eric had read that we've not answered. There's a lady who says she has a habit of rubbing herself and she's tried leaving it, but it's become very hard. And she feels that it's disturbing because she doesn't want men. How can she stop?
Okay. I think this sounds like it may be an addictive behavior or bordering on addiction. Sounds like sex addiction, which of course covers a range of sexual behaviors. And in an assessment, when I'm thinking about that, I would be thinking, is this lady not? Is this lady focusing so much on that? Is it getting in the way of your job? Are you not turning up to work because you're doing that? Or if you are in the office, are you running to the bathroom during a break or when you're supposed to be at work and you are, touching yourself? So those are some of the things that I'll be asking. And of course, are you avoiding sex with other people, which you've actually mentioned that you don't even want men anymore? Sometimes, and this stems from childhood. And if we think about our childhood, we all have like the childhood attachment theories. By age 5, we've all kind of established the kind of attachment that we have. Okay, there are 4 different kinds. And this childhood attachment style is then what translates to our adult love style. And our adult love style determines how we respond to sex and stress. So if we're looking at that like as a bigger picture, what we're really saying is that sometimes when you're engaging in that kind of behavior and how long you've been doing it, you're doing it as a self-soothing mechanism. It makes you feel good. And I want to talk a bit about the brain because you see our limbic system, which is our animal brain, just sits at the back here, and it's very focused on emotion. Yeah, let me do what feels good.
Yeah.
So if you're in a position where you've grown up in a very difficult kind of setting or a family, or maybe nobody paid attention to you, you had no voice, or your parents were always arguing. So you're going to be put in that position where you're kind of like, okay, they're arguing because of me. There's something wrong with me. Those negative cognitions are going to make you retreat back into yourself. And what you may probably end up doing, maybe even as a child, is even just rubbing against the sheets. Because that's something that as a child, that's something that you start doing. You're rubbing against the sheets, then you get a physiological reaction. It feels good. You keep doing it. And then that essentially isolates you. And that kind of addictive behavior is a barrier to intimacy. So I would hope that you reach out and, there's a combination on how to treat addictions, and especially even for sex addiction. So, going for your SAA meetings, which is a Sexaholics Anonymous, and then also coupling it up with therapy, and then trying to change that behavior from healthy to unhealthy. There's nothing wrong with masturbation. Self-pleasure is actually okay, but you need to ask yourself, is it out of control behavior? Is it an addiction? Does it have a negative consequence to yourself, to others? Is it something that is of detriment to you? And and if those kind of questions are resonating with you, then I would say definitely reach out, get some help, because there is a way to enjoy healthy sexual behavior.
Indeed, if you've joined the conversation, perhaps you left the office late. We are in the studio with Cathy Holden, who's a sex therapist, and she's been so gracious. She's answering all of our questions pertaining sex and even sexuality, including trauma. We've gone over a bunch of topics, really. I think our super duper producer will make sure we cut this very nice conversation and post it for you. If you've joined in now on YouTube, we have a presence there as well. Oh my goodness me. Cathy, we have to have you back.
Definitely.
We have to
have you back. We have to have you back, and maybe when you come back, we shouldn't have any interruptions. We'll make sure that it's after Valentine's so that there's no activity that needs lovers to go anywhere, and just talk about these sex stories.
Yeah, that is so cool. I'll be so happy to come back.
Thank you so much for the information.
So awesome. And everybody as well for their questions.
Thank you so very much, Cathy. It's a shame that is all the time we had. But Cathy, somebody wants to reach you in 10 seconds. How do they do that?
So just go to my website. It's Almond Tree Wellness Center, and it's www.almondtreewellness.co.ke. You can also reach me on 0713-896-905, hashtag Almond Tree Wellness on Instagram and Facebook.
They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be. Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The adults in the room will help you stay winning.